Hello, thank you for joining us for tonight's webcast. My name is Ty Eustice. I'm the Executive Director of J. Robinson Intensive Camps. We started this What to Expect webcast to better help parents and campers be prepared for camp. We understand it's a big commitment for families and kids. I think our number one goal at J. Robinson Camps is to help everyone that comes to our camp have a positive experience. Tonight we'll be covering a number of key areas where we receive a lot of questions from parents and campers and coaches. Jason and Garret Garness, our Director of Wrestling Operations, will be covering the following items. They'll be talking a little bit about camp history and training philosophy. They're going to go over some details about each camp location and some important factors leading up to that. Jay and Garret will also be talking about camp expectations for the campers and just a little bit about daily life, some things that parents are really interested in. As always, we'll leave some time at the end for some Q&A with Jay and Garret. But if you look to the right of your screen, you'll see a questions section. Please type in your questions throughout the webcast tonight. We have some JROB staff members here on hand to answer those questions right in the webinar programming. This is a big year here for us at J. Robinson Camps. I know Jay and Sue and all the staff are very, very excited. This is our 40th summer doing J. Robinson Intensive Camps, so we're very, very excited. We've seen a lot of success come out of the camps. We're extremely proud of all of our camper accomplishments, both on and off the mat. If you haven't yet, please visit our website, jrobinsoncamps.com. We worked on a pretty big project here in the last few months. We interviewed one camper from each of the past 5 decades of J. Robinson Camps, and we put together some very interesting videos, some testimonials if you want to call them that. But please visit our website and check out those videos. They're very interesting, hearing from the past campers themselves from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. So I'll turn it over to Jay here in a minute, but just a little bit about Jay. His background has really helped develop what the intensive camps are about. Jay was an Army Airborne Ranger. He was a 1972 U.S. Olympian. He's a member of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, several Hall of Fames, and he was a 3-time national championship head coach. Aside from those things, though, I've gotten to know Jay over the last 5 years. What I've seen firsthand is his passion and his dedication to the summer camps. He really has a passion for helping young wrestlers reach their goals. Very proud to know him and be a part of the company here as we head into our 40th summer. So I'll turn it over to Jay now.
Thanks, Ty. And thank everyone for joining us tonight. We hope to answer some questions and give you some insight of what's going to happen at camp. As we start with the camp training philosophy, this is something that's special in that I started the intensive camps 40 years ago using the word intensive, and there's a lot of intensive training camps out there. But one of the biggest things that people don't do is there's 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. One of the most important things about the intensive training camp philosophy is the length of time. There is a length of time that is very critical to teach and train skills and develop a work ethic. It's like going to a workshop over the weekend for Sunday and Monday. It goes a little bit in, but it doesn't go very deep. The extended periods of time, 10, 14, and 28 days, we have found 10 days to be the least amount of time that we need in order to implement the changes that we want into the wrestlers. And the way we do that is we teach campers how to come over physical and mental fatigue. And in order to do that, you have to get them in that state. You have to get them in a state to where they're tired and show them that they can function when they're tired. It's one of the prime things is that we can learn how to function when you're tired. And so in a wrestling match, when you're tired, you can function then and you can do well. And by practicing that over those 10, 14, or 28 days, you can make great strides. Right? We also show them that they can do things they they don't think they can do. The very first day I give them a lecture on, I have a definition of hard work and they have a definition of hard work, and our definitions are miles apart. And so what we do is redefine words. We redefine what hard work is. We redefine what dedication is. And we give them examples, but not only giving them examples and talking to them, and as you might say, a PowerPoint, is they're actually put in those situations. So they have to make those decisions. And when they make those decisions then stay with them for a long period of time. Part of the training is what's called stress inoculation. And I learned this when I went to Ranger School. And the idea behind stress inoculation is the more you practice it, the better you get at it. They found that, number one, people that are put in stress situations don't do very good. Number two, they found out that people that put in stress situations repeatedly do better and better each time. And the third thing they found is that when you're put in a stress situation, you actually learn it better, it goes deeper, and you incorporate it into the other things you do. So stress inoculation, doing things that are hard at camp, are designed for a certain reason, right? The life skills that we teach and we talk about, the changes forever, is in the context of wrestling, but we've labeled them what's called J7, and there's 7 skills that over the course of this time we've identified. And we'll talk about those a little bit later. And we think that if you come, and I'll tell the kids on the very first day, if you listen to me, if you do what I ask you to do, you could make it through camp, and it will be a life-changing situation. The things that we teach you over the next 10, 14, or 28 days are things that will stay with you and impact your life forever. And that's a promise that I make if people will do it. And over the course of 40 years, there's thousands of wrestlers that have graduated that still carry those life skills with them. We're only going to wrestle for so long, but we're going to have these life skills forever. Which brings to what's called the J7. And the J7, this is a philosophy that over the course of 40 years, I've identified certain skills that I think are very important as life skills and as wrestling skills. And it's the same way in everything, that we didn't just come up with these seven skills. Over the first 20 years, we had 4 skills, and then we added a couple more. And what we try to do is we find things at camp that work, and we keep those, and things that don't work, we discard them. And over the course of this 40 years, we've identified these 7 skills. And they're discipline, dedication, sacrifice, hard work, responsibility, accountability, and service. 6 of the skills are about you individually. And the 7th skill is service, is once you understand who you are, learn who you are, then there is a skill that we have an obligation to help others. I tell the kids that go to camp that they're warriors. And part of our job as warriors is to fight on the mat. And part of our job is to take care of others. So as you look at these words, they just mean words to you right now, but discipline, you'll learn discipline, and discipline is at the bottom of every foundation. And there's only one kind of discipline, and that's self-discipline. And you practice it all the time you're at camp. You'll practice it by being on time, changing your clothes, make sure you get to dinner on right, watching your weight. Everything it comes back to these skills. So you will practice them in what we do on a daily basis. The daily schedule, if you look at, it's posted. There's 4 sessions every day. And if you look at them, we wake up in the morning and we have a running or weight training. And then we go to breakfast. We come back with a technique session. We have lunch. We have a hard wrestling practice in the afternoon. And then at night, we have what's called a mental attitudes session where they do visualization. We have a motivational training. We usually have one of the staff men do a little motivation on what wrestling meant to them. And the object is that everybody's different, and to give enough broad base from our staff that the young wrestlers can identify what they are. one of the things that happens in an intensive camp schedule that I think is very important is that if you look at this, it's a very arbitrary. There's 4 workouts, but I'm at camp every day except for my days off, like everybody else. We work 3 days on and 1 day off, and I'm there to, even though we have this schedule, is to verify the intensity on a daily basis. When you're at camp every day, there's days that the wrestlers and they need a kick in the butt, and there's days that they need, okay, to be slacked off a little bit. And so the object of this schedule is that we can monitor, but more importantly, was we can monitor the intensity that's needed either by a group or the group as a whole, so that we can get the most out of them on a daily basis. So even though that we have, and it looks like a very rigid schedule, it's not rigid in that by being there, I can keep the intensity level designed for either a group or the camp as a whole and what's needed for that specific day. Camp fundamentals, right? And when we start talking about camp fundamentals, I say that everything that you see on the monitor is done for a reason. Everything that we do at camp has a reason behind it. From the technique, training, and practice. Technique is a part of wrestling. There's 4 parts of wrestling: technique, strength, mental attitude. And we go through these things, and it becomes very important that we bring all these things to bear in different things that we do. So technique training, obviously, that's a big part of wrestling that everybody talks about. Drilling in live wrestling is the ability to continually practice what they have learned and putting it into more of a competition. Wrestling and running groups. One of the things that we do is we run in the morning, and a lot of people talk about, well, why is they're running? And that running is a very important part because, and I think one of the campers said it best, probably in the first 3 or 4 years that we did it, when asked that, what did you learn at camp? One of the campers said is, I learned that running didn't have so much to do with my legs as it does with my head. Because when you run hard for 6 minutes, you can't relax. You have to learn to stay focused to run hard. It's like a 6-minute match. You need to learn to stay focused, and running can help you with that. So that's one of the reasons that we do run at camp. Athletic and training is we have full-time trainers there to make sure that any kind of injury, any kind of problems that we have with young athletes that they can see, they can get taped on a daily basis, and that they're taken care of, and we're taking care of all of their athletic problems as far as any kind of injury before it actually happens. Weight monitoring and skin checks is that when you bring a lot of kids together, sometimes in wrestling you get skin situations. We check the guys daily, make sure that if there is any skin problems that we can pull them out of the group right away, and we monitor their weight. Is that they're going to lose weight, we monitor their weight from a safety aspect to make sure that they don't lose more than 1.5% of their body weight. If they do, we pull them out of practice, let them rehydrate, and then return them to practice, right? Another thing that they'll do is they develop personal philosophy. Is a lot of things that people always tell kids is that, where do you go, what do you want to be? And people forget to even ask people, is that, who do you want to be? And so it's very hard to know where you're going until you know who you are. So while they're at camp, they will develop their own personal philosophy. What is important to them? What do they want to do? Who do they want to be? And they will choose words that will define who they will want to be in the future. And then the other thing is there's a lot of daily seminars. I talk to them every day after practice. We give seminars, and they're short 5-10 minute talks on leadership, overcoming adversity. On the very first 2 or 3 days, I will tell them how to get through camp. And if they learn this, and you learn to take it one day at a time. I learned that in Ranger School 40 some years ago in my life, and I still use it today. Right? What is hard work? Mental toughness, right? Yeah, people talk a lot about mental toughness, but we define it. We actually do a session on money management. It's amazing how many of the young people get into what goes on and how they can save money and where does money fit into their life. It's just one other thing to help them down the road. We do a visualization every night, learning how to use your mind in a very positive way. I talk them through it. I tell them how their mind works. Then we have a situation to where every night we do visual training. So they get a practice. We talk about service to others. Is that I talk to them about them being warriors, but as a warrior, you'll fight on the mat. But when you go to your high school, when you go to other places, your job and your responsibility is to take care of others less fortunate. So there's a lot of things fundamentally that goes on with camp that people just don't see in a brochure. But over the course of years, we have added it to camp. And the beauty of it is that every day it's reinforced over and over and over again. When they come to camp, is not everybody graduates at the end of camp, but we have, as in a lot of things, we have what's called an I did it shirt. And what an I did it shirt is, it's a badge of honor. It's a badge of something that has been earned. From the standpoint of earned, never given. It's not given out. It's not a trophy that you just get by showing up. You have to earn it. There's a point system at camp, and you have to earn so many points in order to graduate. Everybody starts with the same amount of points, and points are deducted for different things, for being late, for not having clean clothes. So you can earn this I did it shirt. So it's a statement of achievement. It's very significant. And that's what all the campers are trying to earn. So it's a very important part of camp. This shirt has been given out for 40 years, and not everybody gets it. It's difficult to get. It's not impossible to get. But if you end up and do what you're supposed to do, different kids get it. The percentages change from year to year. Some years we've had as many as 92% of the kids, and other years we've had as little as 62% of the kids. So it depends a lot on doing what you need to do while you're at camp. Some of the highlights at camp are Red Flag Day. What Red Flag Days are is they're kind of like a pop quiz. Is while you're at camp, depending on which one. If you're at the 10-day camp, you'll have one Red Flag Day. If you're at a 14-day camp, you'll have 2 of them. If you're at a 28-day camp, you would have 4 of them. And what they are is they're a very hard practice for an hour and 5, 10 minutes, hour and 15 minutes. And the object is to learn how to push yourself. And that's what a red flag day is. And the object is to put yourself in a very hard situation. And coaches require more out of you. Black Hat Winners is basically in every group, every wrestling group, there'll be a Black Hat winner, and it's basically the best individual, the best camp in that group. It's pretty much like an honor graduate for each wrestling group. On the final day, the campers will either run 9, 12, or 15 miles. And it's another thing is just to show them that they can do things that they haven't ever done or they didn't think they could do. In the 10 and 14-day camp, they'll have a choice of either running 9 or 12 miles. In the 28-day camp, they'll have a choice of running 9, 12, or 15. They have to run 9 in any of the camps. It is the only place in camp where they can earn bonus miles if they run the run that's more than 9. While they're at camp on the first day and on the second to the last day, I meet with the parents that are there, talk a little bit, answer any questions that they'll have. At the beginning of camp, it's to meet them, tell them what to expect, tell them how to help get their son or daughter through camp and some things to be aware of. And then on the second to the last day, we meet with them, and I meet with them, and basically to really tell them and give them an in-depth idea of what their son or daughter has gone through over the last 10 or 14 days. Personal philosophy development is that we do and help them develop their own personal philosophy. I'm amazed that as I go places and sometimes that I speak, I ask people with what their personal philosophy is, and most people don't have it written down. And what they'll come back to is they will pick 7 words of who they want to be in the future. And that will help them then go into goal setting, because before you can really set goals, you have to understand who you are and who you want to be. And this is not a situation of I'm going to tell them, right, the words or the philosophy. They're going to choose who they want to be. And then in the goal setting plan, they're going to plan their life for the next 10 years. And they'll work at it while they're at camp. They'll do it in their workbook, and then they'll come home with their life plan for the next 10 years. It will change, but it will get them started in a direction they need to go. Every day after practices, we have daily seminars on life skills. I spoke a little bit about that. I just talk to different things on those days, things that are important at that part of camp. How to deal with adversity, right? How to get through adversity, leadership, work ethic, helping others, goal setting, all these different things that go on. And we try, and when they're in a certain mental state during camp, and they go through certain mental states at different parts of camp. At the first part of camp, they're a little overwhelmed, so we talk about things, how to get through adversity, how to deal with it. Second part, they figure it out, they know they can do it. The third part, they're doing what a lot of people are doing, they're going through the motion. So I give them talks about, hey, you have to learn how to self-motivate yourself in this situation. So there's a lot of different seminars that go on to help them, all right? Other thing, the SMILE network, one of the J7 that we talked about is service, and what we do is we have adopted the SMILE network, which is a organization that for $500 they fix kids around the world's face with a cleft palate. And so we talk about that. We show them some slides. We show them a video. And then over the course of camp, whatever they drop in the camp store and donate, then we match. So over the course of the last 5 to 7 years, we have fixed probably 50 to 60 kids' face throughout the world. So whatever the kids donate, camp matches that amount of money. Graduation, we have a graduation. We have a graduation that parents are invited to. It's second to the last day, right? There again, I'll talk to all the parents at that graduation. It's after the morning session. It's the last time that I talk to the kids as a group. I'll talk to the parents a little bit before that. Then we have a graduation. They stand up, they get their a picture taken, and then we go through and we have our last hard red flag day, get ready, then we get up the next morning and run and come back. Parents are invited to come to graduation if they want. Intensive camp schedule is that we have 4 intensive camps around the country. We have a 10-day in Iowa, then we go to Pennsylvania for 14 days. We come back to Wisconsin for 28 days, and then we go to Oregon for 14 days. So this schedule hasn't changed much. One of the things that I just mentioned before is that we have and found out that the 10 days is the least amount of time that we need to get done and get the lessons deep within the young men that we're dealing with in the summer. I'm at camp the entire time, except for my days off. I live in the dorm with the kids. If they have questions, if they need help, it's an open door policy. They can come. They'll see me around everywhere while we're at camp. So there's a lot of things that go on. We invite you, if you come as a parent, you come and you have questions on the first day, stop by, ask questions. I'm happy to always answer it. If your son or daughter comes, make sure that you tell them that they come in, and if they have a question, if they have a problem, if they're struggling with camp, right? I've done this for a long time and I can help them get through. All they have to do is come to my dorm room, knock on the door, and we'll see what we can do to get them through camp. So there's a lot of things to help them get through camp. There's a lot of things that we talk about, and it's a very positive experience. It's hard, but it's very positive, and it is a life-changing thing. If they do what we tell them to do, right, when they leave, they will not be the same person. So that's a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to think, but I'm going to turn this over to Garret Garness, our Director of Wrestling Operation, who's in charge of it. Garret goes to camp all summer long. He's been with us, and he does a great job. He cares about the kids. He cares about the camp. And I think this is the thing that sets us apart from any other camp in the country, is that we have people that love what we're doing. They love helping people and young people learn how to be good and develop some skills that will help them not only in wrestling, become champions in wrestling, but overall in life, that these skills will stay with them in years to come. Garret?
All right, thank you, Jay. So just quick note: keep sending in your questions. We've gotten some and have replied to some of them as well. So keep them coming. We will answer a lot of them here at the end. But Jay just covered a lot of the philosophy of the camps, and I'll start going over some of the logistical things. So starting off, payments, taking into account that the majority of all of you listening have already registered, you can make payments on your own. Just log into your account. Whenever you registered, you did create a login. So log back into your account and you can make payments on your own time there. We would like payments made in full at least 3 weeks before the start of the camp. So if you're attending the Iowa 10-day camp, if you haven't done so already, try to get those payments in. The later camps, be mindful of those dates as well. Downloading forms. So there are many forms that need to be filled out and sent to us. Check your confirmation materials for those. Many medical forms, things of that nature that need to get sent in to us. So please check over those confirmation materials. You'll hear me say that quite a bit. We spent a lot of time on those confirmation materials, making sure that all of our information is in those. So please look at that. If you do need to purchase additional products like shirts, shorts, gear packs, things like that, anything that you didn't purchase at registration but would like to go back in and reorder some of those things, give us a call. Those have to be made through our customer service manager, Kelsey. So give us a call. We'll help you take care of those items. Everything else, if you need to update any other registration information, those can be changed through your account login. So again, log back into your account. You can make changes on that. One last thing I'll note is on those medical forms that you download, those do need to be notarized. Please make sure that you do that. If you send those in and they aren't notarized, we will contact you, but it just makes the process a little bit easier if those are notarized beforehand. So next is check-in day. The first day of camp, we do have shuttles that run to each airport at the different camps. So at Iowa, for instance, we shuttle from the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport. So make sure that if you are flying into camp that you clicked on the shuttle service when you registered. Again, you can go back in your account and check to make sure that you did that. If you did do that, please make sure that you have sent us your camper's flight information so that we know when his flight is landing, what airline they're on, and so that we know when to expect them to arrive. For the check-in procedure itself, that's where your camper is going to get, if you ordered shirts, clothing, any sort of products from registration, any products you ordered on there you will get throughout the check-in process. You also get things like workbooks, water bottles, gear packs, etc. But be ready to pick those up then. We get many questions on that, on when to expect getting that. That will be ready for you. but if you did order gear, we still recommend bringing an extra set or two of clothes just in case something happens. We rarely miss orders, but if there is something, make sure you have an extra set or two of clothing, because that very first day we do a timed run. That's when practice starts, is that first day. We do a timed run, and that's what puts your camper into their wrestling and running group. So they will be with other campers that run as fast as them, and then the wrestling groups are based on their weight. Next, on-site camp information. So again, this changes based on the camp that your son or daughter is attending. So for instance, if you are interested in sending mail, please again check your confirmation materials. The address that you will need to send the packages to is in that packet. Again, we check with each of these sites to make sure that that address is correct, and if you properly address your package or your letter, it will get sent to your camper. Next, phone numbers. We do have phone numbers for staff duty. That person changes on a daily basis. We also have a phone number for our trainers and also for the camp store. Again, that's all in your confirmation materials. Be sure to look at that. If you need to add camp store bucks for the camp store, call the camp store. Any medical issues, call the trainer. And then staff duty, just general inquiries or questions, call our staff duty phone number. That is the best place to get a hold of your son or daughter. And also, we are still taking phone calls at our main office, but chances are they will just refer you to the staff duty or one of those other numbers that I just mentioned. Laundry is done on site as well for the campers' workout gear only. So if your son or daughter has their personal casual clothing that they wear not at wrestling camp, we also have laundry facilities that they can use to wash those items. However, those are coin or card operated. Again, look at your confirmation materials. That'll state it in there. Food, we do serve 3 meals a day. Pretty standard. It's all you can eat food. If you do have specific allergies, please contact us and we will get you the school's contact information for dining services. They deal with that a heck of a lot more than we do, so we'll refer you to them, and they are very good about making accommodations for that. Visitor protocol. Visitors are definitely welcome. Parents, family, other family, friends, coaches can come and watch any of the practices. Our one rule is no getting in vehicles. We don't want anyone to be able to get out of our supervision by getting into vehicles, and even if you're going out to eat or something, it has to be within walking distance. Otherwise, parents and family can definitely come and eat with the campers as well in the dining hall. And then lastly, I'll just mention we do enforce all traffic and pedestrian laws. It sounds kind of simple, but safety is our #1 priority, and even something as simple as jaywalking, you know, we take that stuff very seriously, and it's not that we want to punish them, it's just that we have their safety in mind. Next, for a camp store, we have many items available, ranging from you know, scooters, fans, snacks, beverages, and other J. Robinson camp gear. There's a couple different ways that you can pay for items in there. One is simply by cash, and we also we have what we call our camp bank. If your son or daughter has cash, we would like them to keep it with us in our camp bank. We've never had any stolen money from our camp bank. Basically, what we do is we take that money and we will put it in an envelope with your camper's name on it and store it safely. They can come anytime the camp store is open to get that money if they want go to Subway across the street or whatever it is, that money is theirs. We just keep it safe for them. The other way, you can add Camp Store bucks onto your camper's account. Basically, the way that works is anytime they want to buy anything from the camp store, we have a master list of how much money they have on their account, and we just simply deduct it, same as using like a debit card or something of that nature. The camp store is open 3 times a day during lunch, dinner, and after the last practice before bed. We serve pizza and subs and other things. So typically we recommend about $75 to $100 per week for your camper. It's just for various different things. Again, pizzas at night, other gear, things like that. Next, what to bring to camp. There's a lot of items that you can bring, but there's a few that you obviously cannot bring. To name a few, the times we live in, we understand that cell phones are a necessity. So cell phones are allowed, MP3 players, iPods, tablets, laptops, things like that. You can definitely bring. Although you can bring them, there are certain times, for instance, cell phones, there are certain times that you can't use cell phones. For instance, during practice, we do take that very seriously. So although you can have them, there are certain times where you cannot use them. And again, we take that seriously and we will enforce that. Things that you can't bring, air conditioners, toaster ovens, things like that. Obviously, alcohol and tobacco. Campers are below 18. So all these rules are also posted on site at our camp, so the campers never have any questions about what sort of rules and what things they can have and can't have. So for a full packing list, you can find that online at our website at jrobinsoncamps.com. Simply go to the Parents tab and click on Camp Packing List, and that'll give you a full list of everything that you need. One last thing I'll mention before we move on is we do recommend 10 to 12 sets of workout gear. Although laundry is done every single day, if there was something happened where laundry was pushed back a day or two, they would still have extra clothes. So we do recommend 10 to 12 sets of clothes, and obviously bringing plenty of towels and soap. So next, we'll move on to our safety. The number one thing that we get a lot of questions on is our daily weigh-in procedure. We do weigh in our campers on the very first day of camp, and that is what we call their baseline weight. And throughout the entire camp, that camper cannot lose more than 1.5% of what they weighed on the first day of camp. And we simply do that for hydration reasons. It's one of the best ways that we can identify how hydrated the camper is. Typically, when a wrestler is losing a significant amount of weight in a short amount of time, it's because they're losing water weight, and we don't want that to happen. So if a camper were to lose more than 1.5% of their body weight, we would hold them out for at least 2 practices. After those 2 practices, that wrestler is then responsible for finding an athletic trainer and re-weighing in. And again, they must meet that 1.5% requirement. Otherwise, we will continue to hold them out until they are back up to that. Yes, we do take that very seriously. Again, it's for your camper's safety. At some of these sites, we don't have air conditioning in every single building that we're in, so we do it to make sure that every wrestler is keeping the proper amount of water and keeping their water bottles filled and using it all day long. We do have procedures in place to prevent herpes and other daily and other skin infections. We do daily skin checks. We do highly recommend to get on a prescription of Valtrex before and during the camp to prevent herpes outbreaks or contracting the herpes virus. We also adjust our daily practices based on weather, and making sure that we're getting the most out of the campers as well. Obviously, if it's 110 degrees outside, we're not going to be we're going to be shortening our practices, and we're going to be making sure that they're all safe and not getting dehydrated in that way either. We do have a camper to staff ratio of 8-to-1, and also have 5 to 7 trainers staffed at all times. Many of those athletic trainers are certified trainers as well, licensed in each state. So, we take every precaution necessary to make sure that your camper is getting the care needed to prevent injuries, and also to help heal any injuries that occur. All of our counselors also undergo background checks. Obviously, that's something we really take seriously, and want to make sure that your son or daughter is under good supervision. Our staff also completes a 2-day mandatory training program, and they're immersed in a structured environment to make sure that, again, they're in a safe environment. So in order to prepare for camp, we do recommend various different things. Number one, you need to get out there and run and strength train and wrestle. We don't want to, I guess, shock the system to say. We want to make sure that the camp is hard, and in order to get the most out of you, you do need to come to camp in somewhat good shape. So if you haven't started doing so already, I would definitely get out there, start running, start lifting, and try to get on the mat a couple times a week to really make sure that you're preparing for this camp the proper way and getting the most out of it. Again, I had already mentioned it, but getting a Valtrex prescription is highly recommended. We had a study done at our camp several years ago that proves, or that suggests that a Valtrex medication does prevent contracting the herpes virus. So I would definitely recommend getting on that. If you do want to see the study, you can also give us a call and we can send that to you. We work closely with several doctors that believe so as well. Again, I had already mentioned it, but 10 to 12 sets of workout gear is recommended, and also a good pair of running shoes, because we are running 1 to 2 times a day. And also, I would also add bringing a backup pair of running shoes as well. If it's raining outside, we do still run. So bringing an extra pair if one gets wet, or a pair of shoes blows out, definitely having an extra one is key. Putting your camper's name on everything is also something we definitely recommend. It prevents other camps from stealing our items. There are several of our sites where there are other camps at our location, leadership camps, things like that aren't affiliated with us, but that stuff can happen. It's very rare, but again, if you put your camper's name on it, it definitely will prevent some of those things from happening. And then lastly, just make sure, again, review some of our recommendations and requirements in your confirmation materials. I know I keep saying that a lot, but it is very important to us. So next, we do have a full-time customer service manager. Her name is Kelsey. When you call our main office phone, you will most likely reach Kelsey. She is very helpful, and she's very good at answering any of your questions. So definitely reach out to Kelsey if there are other things that you don't hear in this webcast that you would like answered. We do have a 24-hour response time also to other inquiries. If you're emailing us, we will get back to you within 24 hours. On top of that, we do have, during camp itself, our phone is monitored 7 days a week. I'm specifically talking about our staff duty phone, our trainer phone, and our camp store phone. So like I had mentioned earlier, give those phone numbers a call first while your camper is at camp, and you're most likely to get the quickest response by calling one of those numbers. if your son or daughter has an emergency at camp, a family emergency, we understand that your wrestler is with us for an extended amount of time. So if there are emergencies that come up, give us a call. We will seek your wrestler out and find them and make sure that we get them the message that you have to them, even if it's during a practice, something like that. We will make sure to get those to them right away. And again, I mentioned the staff duty phone and the athletic training phone number. So next, I would just like to say, be sure to follow us on social media. We do have, you can see them listed on the screen, but some of the pictures that we do take and some of the interactions that we have with the wrestlers are put on those social media sites. So definitely check that out for any photos and updates on the camp as a whole. That would be your best place for finding that online. We don't guarantee that we're going to have your wrestler in any pictures or anything, but if there are going to be any of your son or wrestler, it would be on there. So definitely check us out, and we also have plenty of other interesting articles and things like that we write that are interesting reads, and learning about the camp a little bit more is always good. So lastly, a slide about parents to help parents out. Practices are open. I mentioned it earlier. Practices are open to any of the parents to come and watch, come and learn, come and interact, with some of our staff. But the biggest thing that it can sometimes do, especially if your wrestler is sometimes feeling homesick, is just to see something familiar to them, and that's the parents. See their dad or mom can definitely lift their spirits at times and help them make it through camp. Specifically at the 28th day, we understand it is a long time away from home. So just something to be aware of. The camp is very, very tough. Jay talked about it extensively, but the philosophy of the camp is that the wrestlers will need to overcome physical and mental fatigue. It's part of the learning process, and your wrestler should expect that. What do you do if you get a phone call from your wrestler saying, they aren't enjoying it or they want to go home? The best piece of advice that we can give you is to set expectations. Say, give it one more week. Talk to them about what they've learned, how they're feeling. Avoid yes or no questions, basically. Get them talking about it, encourage them to make it one more practice, one more day, one more week, and then before you know it, they have a positive experience, and then their mind switches and they want to stay through camp, and before you know it, it's the end of camp, and it ends up changing their life. We see it all the time, where a wrestler will write us years later saying that they didn't even want to come to camp, and they made it through the first day, and then the second and the third, and next thing they know, 40 years later or 4 or 5 years later, they look back at that as the turning point in their life on when they really learned a lot. So next we'll go into our question and answer. It's really an opportunity for you guys to answer any questions that we haven't already elaborated on. So keep sending in those questions, and we will. I'll pass it off to Jay to answer the first one.
Thanks, Garrett. Here's just some different questions. I'll just answer them, go through them. There's a lot of them there that you have, and they're all good questions because son's going away. Some of you for the first time and for a long period of time. So don't feel that there isn't any time that you can't call and you have questions. We have a staff duty phone daily at camp. It's monitored all the time. So if you have a question, call and ask. what happens when a camper doesn't make weight? We weigh them in every day. Is that if they don't make weight, they sit out for 2 practices, and then we re-weigh them to make sure that they're hydrated. When they work out 4 times a day, they're going to lose water, and they need to get that water back in. Another thing that we didn't tell you is that, and I've said this and you've heard me say it a lot of times, everything is done for a reason. The first 7 days of camp, they're not allowed to drink pop. Even though pop is in the dorm, even though pop is in the cafeteria, pop doesn't help them rehydrate. So it's like I said, everything is done for a reason. We found that in order to rehydrate, they need fluids, they need water, and that becomes very important. So we monitor that weight, and we help them by making those decisions by keeping them away from pop. Okay. Another question is on the point system. How do campers earn and lose points? All the campers start out with the same number of points. Using the 28-day camp as an example, it's the easiest. Everybody starts with 1,000 points. You have to have 700 points to graduate. And throughout the day, different things you are required to do. You have to do them. You have to be on time. You have to have clean clothes every day. You have to get your workbook done if you're working on philosophy or if you're working on goal setting. Okay? Every day there's positives and negatives that are giving out at practice. The kids that work the hardest and kids aren't working hard. And so points are given and taken on a daily basis. The biggest thing when you look at the point situation is that the majority of points are under the control of each camper, being on time. That's the biggest one. If they're in a 28-day camp and they work out 4 times for 26 days, if you work out for more than 26 days, you can have over 100 points. So 100 times that you have to be on time. So if you lose 25 points for being just 6 times being late in a 28-day camp, you could be in a situation where you couldn't graduate with an I Did It shirt. So everything that we talk about is being reinforced. Going back to that J7, the discipline is to make sure that you're on time. Make sure that you have your water bottle. Someone asked about a water bottle. Is that you have to have your water bottle at every practice. Your water bottle has to be full at the beginning of every practice. There are reasons for everything. It's to get them used to doing what they're supposed to do, to following the directions and going in the right way. How do you ensure hydration during practice? Is that we give water breaks throughout practice, is that they have their water bottles, and the trainers continually, we have 5-gallon jugs of water situated throughout the workout area to where that when they get a break. Breaks are given depending upon what the heat index of the day. If we decide on one day we need more water breaks, we could give them every 15 minutes. If it's not as hot, we might go to 20 minutes or 25 minutes. It just depends on the heat index for the day. Another question: Are the wrestlers and are the wrestlers stuck in the running and wrestling groups from the first day? Yes, they are, for the most part. Sometimes we move them up into a more challenging running group. Usually they do not move out of the wrestling group because they're picked in wrestling group based upon their weight and their ability. Within the wrestling group, what happens is there's 50 to 60 kids in a wrestling group. Within the wrestling group, it's just like a wrestling room normally in high school. People will find the level of competition within that group that they need to be at. Running is a little bit different, is that if you get put in a running group and you can actually are getting a lot of positives, then they might move you up in a running group. So there is a possibility in a running group that you could be moved up. question is, how do you let parents know if their kids are injured at camp? The trainers, if they're injured in camp and they go to the hospital, the trainers will call the parents. It is required for the trainers to call when they're taking them to the emergency room. If they sit out for something like a skin infection or for hydration, parents won't be called. That is the responsibility of the camper to call them. But anytime there's an injury that they go to the emergency room, the parents will be called. All right. So those are a lot of the questions. One of the questions about the point system is, can you get more than 1,000 points? Yes, you can. It's possible that if you got positives, as an example, if you get a positive in a running or a wrestling practice or a weight training practice, those can be added to your score. So one of the things that I should mention about the point system that is very important is that you never will know, your son will never know, no one will ever know what the points are. The reason that's done, and this point system is taken right from Army Ranger School, is that you can't start figuring out how many points you have and where you can slack and where you can't slack, where if I could sit out practice or not sit out practice. So you never know. There's only 3 people that will ever know how many points that you have. It'll be me, Garret, and the individual that we have at each camp that keeps the point system. It's a system that we have devised, we have worked at, and we have maintained and made it better and better every year. So that point system is a very important system in the overall part of graduating. One of the questions is if you just sit out for part of practice, do you lose points? Yes, you do. Is that one of the things that you have to look at? Is it's a very simple process. Is that the question you ask people is, if I went to the entire practice and you didn't go to the entire practice, should we both get the same thing? And I think the simple answer is, everybody would agree, is no. And so you have to be there for the whole practice, for the practice to count. So do you lose points? You lose points if you sit out practice. You lose, I think one of the questions the parent asks is, if you sit out of a practice because of weight, yes, you lose points. Part of that is because the responsibility is to make sure that your weight is kept up and it's hydrated. We put a scale in the dorm, and we put one where the campers can weigh before they go to breakfast in the morning, lunch, or dinner, so they know what their weight is and they know that what they have to do to keep their weight hydrated. As you listen to this seminar, you'll hear that a lot of things go back to the kids. Everything is going back to them. They are responsible for a lot of stuff, and they're accountable. We say that the J7 is discipline, dedication, sacrifice, hard work, responsibility, and accountability. They're responsible for being on time. They're responsible for having their water bottle. They're responsible, right, for making sure that they have clean gear. This goes over, and they're responsible for having their workbook done. All these things go back to them, and they're graded accordingly. And as I said, with the point system, the majority of points that they lose are in their control. And so that becomes very important.
So a few more questions that we had. One of them is, what is the timeline of the commuter camp? So we do have 5-day camps as well. I know we've been touching a lot on the intensive camps, but our 5-day camps for commuters, the start time is 8:30 a.m. and the pickup time for commuters at the 5-day camp is around 9 p.m. That might vary on a daily basis, but for the most part, that is the time frame you're looking at. So again, that's 8:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. what I would recommend is checking the daily schedule that is posted in the dorms. So when you're picking your camper up, you can definitely look at those schedules that are posted, or also talk to the camp director. There is a 5-day phone number as well. Again, that's in your confirmation material, so look that up. You can always call that number. You will likely get the camp director of that, and he will have all the daily schedules, so he'll be able to give you an exact time on what time they'll be done. But again, typically it's 8:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. So someone also asked, do you find that wrestlers come out of camp with a significant difference or improvement in their technique? Also, can you bring a bike? Well, I'll start with the second part of that question. Bringing a bike, you can definitely bring a bike to the 28-day camp. That one is a little bit longer of a walk. It's not bad, but 28-day camp in Wisconsin is the only camp that you can bring a bicycle to. Otherwise, scooters, skateboards, those work as well. But the other camps, the walk is extremely short. It's less than a block to facilities. So that's one thing. In terms of technique, it's definitely a huge part of our curriculum, and we definitely find that campers come out with a lot more technique. I mean, we're looking at having 2 technique sessions a day for a minimum at the 10-day camp for 10 days. So we're looking at 20 technique sessions. Would be 18 with the 8 days in the middle, or excuse me, 16 with the 8 days in the middle. But absolutely, we cover everything from very fundamentals all the way up to super advanced techniques like leg riding, other turns, scrambling techniques, things like that. There's so much time that is spent on the mat, whether it be live wrestling, drilling, simple technique. We cover it throughout the entire camp and so extensively, and with really staff that come from all across the country as well, that are have knowledge in so many different areas of the sport, that they get the opportunity to learn from some of the best counselors in the country. So we're really excited about our staff this year, and we definitely see that they come back with learning a lot. And one other thing I should mention too is our workbooks. They do have, campers can take notes on the technique that they learn. They're encouraged to do so, actually. Take notes on the technique that they learn during each practice. They have to reflect on, they have to do some journaling, just reflecting on their thoughts, how they're feeling for the day. They also have workbook assignments that they have to do as well. And again, that goes back to our camp philosophy, that the more that they practice something, the better it'll stay with them, and the deeper it'll go within them, to be able to create the change that we're hoping to see. So another question we have is do wrestlers switch groups if they gain weight? Is it difficult to maintain your weight? So we don't switch wrestlers in wrestling groups. Typically we don't see wrestlers gaining a tremendous amount of weight. A few pounds can be expected, but we don't see a massive amount of weight gain throughout the camp. So we don't switch wrestling groups at all. Is it difficult to maintain the weight? I wouldn't say it's difficult. 99% of the campers don't have a problem maintaining the weight. Every wrestler is going to be going to breakfast, going to be going to lunch and dinner, and it's all you can eat. You have to have your water bottle filled at all times. You have to, drink water constantly. It's never really been a huge issue with the majority of our campers maintaining that weight. You know exactly when the weigh-in is going to be. It's not like we're going to surprise you and say, suddenly here we're weighing in. It's on the schedule. You know exactly when it's coming. There's a check scale in the dorms, so you can always check your weight. It's really not an issue, and if it does become an issue, come find us, and we'll talk about what's going on, and see why you aren't able to maintain that. But so this brings up a good point. I definitely wouldn't recommend eating a large lunch right before check-in, because that is when we're going to take your baseline weight. So don't come and eat a huge lunch and weigh a lot more than what you normally do just because you wanted one good last meal before checking in for camp. Eat a light lunch and weigh in then, and then your weight will be your baseline weight will be lower. So that about sums it up for us. Thanks for tuning in to our webcast. And again, if there's any questions that we weren't able to get to, please give us a call on our main office line, and we'd be happy to talk to you. Thanks.